This is an interview with Jenn Cunningham for the Youngstown Historical Center of Industry and Labor Oral History Project titled Women at Work. The interview is being conducted at the Youngstown Historical Center of Industry and Labor, known as the Steel Museum, on May 5th, 2023. My name's Nicole Marino. Hi, Jenn. Welcome.
Thank you.
Where did you and your family live when you were growing up?
Right in Middletown, where I currently still live.
All right. And what did your parents do for a living?
So my mom, she worked 3 different jobs at once. She was a single mom. She was a waitress at 2 different places. She was a bartender. And as far as my dad, I'm not sure. He didn't stick around.
He wasn't around. Okay. And where did you go to high school?
I went to Springfield Local.
Mm-hmm. When did you graduate?
2012.
Okay. What did you do after high school?
So after high school, I tried to go to college. I went to Westminster for about a year, almost 2. I got pregnant. I had my son, and I didn't go back.
And changed direction. Okay.
Yes.
What was your first job?
My very first job was at Family Video, and that was right after I got out of high school.
Okay. Okay. So, how long would you say you were at Family Video?
Probably 5 months, just the summer.
Mm-hmm. And that was still high school.
Yes.
And then after you got out of school, where did you go to work then?
After that, I went to Alliance Castings, which is the very first steel mill I worked at.
Okay.
They actually shut their doors and closed down, so I found a new job shortly after that.
Shortly after that. How long were you at Alliance Casting before they shut down?
2.5 years.
2.5 years? Where'd you go after that?
After that, I went to Universal Stainless in North Jackson. It's also a steel mill.
Awesome. Okay. Were these jobs that the union lined up for you, or did you get those on your own and then join the union later?
I got those on my own. So I actually learned about Alliance Castings through a job fair at the Career Center.
Oh, okay. That's pretty good.
Yep.
How long were you at Universal Stainless?
I was there for 7 years.
7 years.
Yes.
All right. And then so what made you decide to look into that kind of work?
Well, I'd always wanted to be a welder growing up. That was just really what I wanted to do. And I didn't do much welding at either place, but I did do a lot of cutting and fabricating and stuff like that.
Okay.
And just working around the hot stuff. And I guess kind of got used to it. I just
Yeah.
loved it. I fell in love with it, and
Right.
I couldn't stop.
Excellent.
The hours were good, pay was good.
Okay. So so you found these jobs, and then you already said you found one at the job fair, and then when you got hired in, what kind of training did you have to enable you to do that kind of job?
It was just person-to-person training, my coworkers would train me. No schooling or...
Okay. What was your job title when you first started?
At Alliance Castings? Or...
Yeah, and actually both.
So Alliance Castings, I was just a regular production...
Like a laborer?
Yeah, kind of like a laborer, yeah.
Sure. What'd they have you do in there?
So our job was to pull cores out of an oven and coat them with paint.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
So that when the steel touched it, it would instantly cool it in certain areas, because we built train parts there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool. And then, did you stay in that position the whole time you were at Alliance, or did they give you opportunity to move up or sideways?
They had things called bids. So they would post jobs and you could bid on them, and if you won them, you got to go do them, and that's what I did multiple times.
Okay.
Because I never liked staying in the same spot.
Sure. And was the bid process, was their decision in the bid process based on seniority?
Yes.
Was it seniority and merit, or just seniority?
Just seniority.
And then they would train you on the new position?
Yes.
Cool. That's very cool. When you went to Universal Stainless, was it the same thing there?
Yes, except they used your merit and your seniority.
Oh,
so
okay.
they knew if you were capable of doing something, because you had to take an aptitude test. So it was a little bit
Okay.
easier.
Yeah, well, just a different method of getting there. When you started at Universal Stainless, what position did you start in?
I started out as a laborer there too.
Okay. And then as you stayed, you got an opportunity to bid jobs and kind of show what you
Yes,
were
I ended
worth?
up as a crew leader before I quit.
Okay. Just thinking of those two jobs, so where did you land at Alliance? Like, what was your trajectory of job titles there? Because it looks like you had an opportunity to change, and you did it several times?
Several times, yeah. So I started off in the core room, which was just the pulling the pieces out of the oven.
Mm-hmm.
I bid it out into CNF, which is cleaning and finishing, which is like their final process. And I was a crane chain person for the crane for quite a few months. And then I actually bid it into an arc house, which is cutting with carbon arc rods and stuff, getting the scrap off. That was probably the coolest thing. I stayed there till the end.
Cool. And then when you went to Universal Stainless, you ended as a crew leader. Did you do kind of the same thing there?
No, so there I was in the melt shop, and we basically had to set molds and build charges, and that was a lot of the heavy lifting style jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a crew leader, but I switched over to finishing at the end there because I got tired of working the 712s in the melt shop. It's getting to be too much.
Yeah. And how many different jobs did you end up bidding on while you were there?
Probably only two.
Just two?
Just two, yeah.
And then when you got in there, it was kind of
Yep.
a good fit for you, it seems like. After Universal Stainless, right? So you started there in what, like 2014, 2015, something?
2015.
2015. And then so what made you decide to move from there into just the union hall?
So they actually were non-union when I first started at Universal, and they voted the union in, and we voted on a contract.
Oh,
And that's how I ended up as a steel worker.
okay. And so since you've had the opportunity to work both sides of that particular fence, how do you like being a part of the union?
I would definitely pick it over non-union. Your benefits are better, the insurance, everything is better. I
Good.
mean, you do kind of have to deal with the laziness and the job protection of some others that used to be really good, and then they realized what they could get away with. And
Yeah.
that's the only thing that changed in the
Okay.
negative.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's not good. So when I'm going to ask you some of these questions, and I invite you to tell me about each different place, whatever sort of makes sense. On a typical day, right? I recognize that you did several different things, but what would you do on a typical day at Alliance Castings, for example?
So at Alliance Castings, I would get there, and I worked on the night shift there, so we started at 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Get there and hang out for a little while. 'Cause I'm always early. I'm always at least a half hour early for everything. Hang out for a little while and then get started immediately because they were very punctual. If you didn't get out there and get going, that was it. Get rode up, and
Sure.
then you would just get yourself set up, put on your leathers, and jump right in and start pulling pieces because you'd have laborers that would pull your pieces in, pull them out, and then you just kept going all night.
Okay. And then what was a typical work day like at Universal Stainless?
Universal, I was on night shift and day shift. We worked swing there, so just get there whenever and have your morning coffee or your tea or whatever, and then get right into it.
Was it like labor intensive at each of those places?
I was more labor intensive at Alliance Castings than Universal.
Okay.
Universal had its moments, but not nearly as much as Alliance. You would come home covered in dirt and
Worn out.
yes.
So when you were doing shift work, would it be like days for 2 weeks, afternoons for 2 weeks, midnights for 2 weeks, or how did that work out for you?
So it depended. We ran campaigns, so whenever the furnace was done for that campaign, we would be on days, and then it would be done, and then you would go to nights the following week.
Okay. And how did you adjust to that kind of changing schedule?
I didn't.
No?
I never ever adjusted to it. It was the hardest thing. Even to this day, I'm still feeling the problems that it caused me. I want to wake up and eat in the middle of the night, and I know I can't do that.
Yeah. And so which shift do you prefer?
Days.
Days.
Absolutely.
And you told me you're on 410s now, and you like that
Love
the
it.
best?
Absolutely love it. 510s would be great too, but just for the overtime.
Sure. Okay. So we talked a little bit about how you move positions and stuff, and that's good. When you think about a typical day, what might be a typical challenge that you would run into on the floor of either of those places?
My coworkers, the
Yeah.
biggest challenge.
Yeah.
A lot of them, the older ones, they were harsh. Their words were harsh.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are you here? You shouldn't be here. You should be at home, doing things for your husband or
Sure.
taking care of your kid. They always made assumptions that I was just a bad mom because I wasn't home with my child enough. That was the biggest.
And when you see the older guys, like give me a range of age for how old do you think those guys are?
Probably at least over 50. The younger ones were way different. I said, I wish my girlfriend would do that, or I wish my wife was able to do this. It's pretty sweet.
What's your reaction when they make these comments, or how do you approach that?
I just get them right back. I said, well, we're both in the same position here. I'm here for the same reason you are, to make a paycheck and go home.
Yep. And is that enough?
Oh,
Usually,
yeah. They
Okay.
usually come around after a couple months.
Yeah.
Usually.
And so you mentioned that the younger guys are much more
Open.
just attuned to
Yeah.
treating you as an equal right off the bat.
Yes.
When does anybody get more negative or biased towards you than sort of that run-of-the-mill machismo sentiment that you just told me? You know what I mean? More than that sort of, you should be home in the kitchen with your shoes off. But does anybody get real bad, or is it sort of all in the same range of comment?
There's a few that are pretty bad. Pretty bad.
How many, so how many people do you generally work with at any given time?
Probably the most 7.
Mm-hmm. And are they all guys, or do you ever get an opportunity to have a mixed team with women?
With the ironworkers right now, there's actually 2 of us, which is great. And she's an operator, and she's an older lady, and she just gives me all kinds of tips, and it's awesome working with another female.
That's great.
Especially like that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and that seems pretty good. So that's where are you now with the ironworkers? Where are you placed?
I am at the battery plant in Lordstown.
You're at the battery plant now. All right. And how long have you been there?
Since October.
And is that the kind of contractor you're going to be there for a while?
It sounds like it.
Good.
What they like to say, I'm a cheap apprentice because I'm a first-year apprentice and they don't have to pay me as much as others. So they're probably going to try to keep me there until the contract's up.
Sure. And how long is your scheduled apprenticeship? Is it a set number of time or until you test out?
So it goes by hours, schoolwork, volunteer hours,
Okay.
and then we have to get report cards, which is just give it to your foreman or your journeyman, and they'll fill it out and send it in. But we have to have requirements until we can go on to the next year.
To the next stage. Okay. So what's your working relationship like with the people you're working with now?
It's great. It's
good?
fantastic. I'm working with 2 older guys. They're both over 50, and it's fantastic. They let me get my hands in on everything, and they got jokes all day, which is great because I like the environment. I like to laugh. It's by far the best that I've been doing this whole entire time.
That's awesome. How about management and administration? How are they with workers in general? What's your perception of how they treat you guys?
Good. I
Good.
would say good.
Yeah?
They treat us pretty good.
And how about the way they treat you specifically?
Very good.
Very good?
Very good.
Do you ever...
Much better than I expected.
Oh, good. When you were going in, did you expect it to be like an old boys club, and then you were going to have to fight? You already
Yes.
went in thinking you were going to have to fight that battle?
Yes, I went in with that mindset.
And how true was it at the very beginning? Did you recognize that when you were real young and started at Alliance?
I did not. I had an attitude back then because I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Got that from my mom. But so I didn't really think of it like that. But now when I started doing this iron work, I was like, okay, these guys are definitely not going to give me that opportunity at first. But
Right.
they did. Like
Oh, so they were better than you.
Yeah.
You were prepared for the worst and got the
Yes.
better. Okay, good. And then you were a little feisty when you're young, so you were standing, you probably realized pretty early you were going to be standing up for yourself out of force.
Right. Yeah, I would say that.
What kind of adjustment was it for you when you were real young?
What do you mean?
Well, because like your job in high school was a retail public-facing thing, right? Where you're required to be nice, but generally you can expect people to be nice to you because they want something from you. And then you move into a different scenario where you're at Alliance Casting and it's a shop. What was your transition like?
I felt so much better when I was away from the customer-based thing.
Okay.
Because family video, like, there was a lot of competition there, believe it or not. People coming in and they got late fees and they don't want to pay them. And it's our job to get that money from them because they owe it and they can't rent out more videos until they pay it.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
So me and confrontation have never been very good. I don't like to be confronted.
Okay. Well, and then so were there guys that gave you grief at Alliance Casting? And now you're young and don't like confrontation and you're finally away from retail and then here are these guys. So how did that pan out?
So I actually don't even remember them saying anything other than the first couple comments. And then, like I said, after a while, it was completely different.
And then it just kind of, okay.
They got used to me being there, I guess.
That's cool. Thinking over all your jobs, and you mentioned you have another girl on your team right now, which you really like, but thinking of other places, did you, how were your working relationships with other women at other places?
At Alliance Casting, there was only one other woman that I worked for, and she did not care for me at all.
Okay.
I think she thought I was there for like the attention of the guys, which was not true. I was there to work.
That was, okay.
You know, rumors were started with her, so her and I didn't get along very, very well.
Okay.
But at Universal, there was no other females other than HR, and I never really had to deal with her too much.
Okay. Did you go through any strikes while you were on the job?
No.
No? And since you're in the union now and you've had the experience of pre-union and then union work, have you ever had to report a grievance for yourself or for anybody else?
Yes.
Yeah? How did that resolve itself?
So you would go through your union rep, which we had a grievance officer at Universal, and like most of the time it had to deal with them giving overtime to less seniority people instead of asking from high seniority down. They would give it to that bottom person instead of going through the list. And, you know, I love overtime. I'll take it when I can get it.
Sure.
So we used to have to file grievances for that all the time, and he would take it up with the union at the hall, and it would get resolved. They would have to pay me for not even me being there.
Oh, because it's the opportunity missed,
Yes.
and they're reimbursing you for that. Why do you think they gave it to the lowest people?
I think because maybe it was cheaper to pay them than it was to pay me.
That would be my guess, but that's why I wanted to ask, because I wanted to know. And then did filing grievances or working like that ever create uncomfortable situations for you on the workplace,
Absolutely.
then later on the floor?
Absolutely.
How did that shake out?
You know, the person that we were filing the grievance against, he said, "You can't take this away from me. I have family at home." And trying to make it personal when it wasn't personal, it was just union.
Right.
That was it. And he just found his way to go through the supervisors and behind all the unions back to get what he wanted. And he would come in for a different spot for overtime, and we would keep filing grievances every single time, and they would just keep allowing it. And it didn't go well for him because he was basically a scab to everybody else.
Right. So he's kind of putting himself in a bad position and then doesn't pick up on the fact that this is making more problems for yourself.
Yes.
And then the leaders of these different teams that are scheduling him, they didn't have a way to know, like they didn't notice, or how?
They noticed. They were trying to do him a favor because of the pity story that he was giving.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. So eventually this went on until it petered out and he couldn't find anybody else to champion him?
Yes.
And then was he salty after that?
Oh yeah, he quit shortly after that, actually, yeah, which was sad because you don't want to see anybody go. But.
Right. Huh. So you've worked at a couple different places. Did each place have appropriate facilities for you, like a restroom or locker room, shower, or whatever?
Yes.
Everywhere?
Everywhere.
Cool. That's good to hear. And did you ever feel like a minority on the job?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've been called a minority.
Really?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Normally, whenever like I get worried about being laid off or not having something to do, they'll be like, "You don't have to worry about that because you're a minority."
Oh, wow.
Because they say that women get the better jobs because there's less of them.
Uh-huh.
Similar to a different race, they would keep them on.
Yeah. Because they have certain quotas that they have to meet, and then you benefit from that.
Yes.
But they monitor your merit too, so it's not like you're getting the job just because of your disposition.
Right.
It's because you deserve to be there.
You deserve
Okay.
to be there,
Yeah.
yes.
Did you ever, like, on the job though, do you feel like a minority? Do you feel different than your coworkers? A lot or a little or none?
Not as much anymore as I used to. I
Okay.
definitely used to, but not as much at all.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I just blend right in.
Okay. Great. What do you like the most about your job?
The ironworkers, I couldn't even tell you. I love everything that we do. I like building stuff. I like fabricating stuff. I like the little bit of welding that I've done. I can't say that there's too much I dislike so far.
What do you like the least about your job?
Okay, having to use porta potties. That's the least.
Okay.
But as far as the work goes, I can't. Let me think. There might be something. I like the heights. I'm not scared of the bugs too. Having to work around the bugs.
Sure. Bugs and porta-johns. I feel like that's a fair statement.
Yes. But as far as the work goes, I can't really think of anything I dislike yet.
Yeah.
But I haven't done it all.
So you said earlier that you were going to school and had your son,
Yes.
right? Is he your only child?
Only child. Yep.
And were you ever married?
I was not married. No.
Okay. So you're young and you're working and you have a little boy at home. How did you handle childcare when you went back to work full time?
My amazing mother took care of almost all of it right from the rip. Like, as soon as he was born, she was there, arms wide open. And then his other grandparents were also there. They've always been there.
So you had a nice support network of family that
Yes.
was able to help you out, and shift work was it a struggle for them when you were changing shifts or anything?
Not for them, just
Good.
for me, because
Okay.
I would usually, when I was on nights, I would take care of them all day. That way they could go to do their own things during the week and stuff that they had to get done. That was the hardest part. That's why I couldn't stand night shift. No sleep whatsoever.
Right. If it was relevant, did you ever have to care for your parents or another family member that needed you medically while you're also raising your child and trying to work full time?
Yes, my mom's had knee surgeries. I had to take care of her, take her to the hospital, to her appointments.
Okay. Yeah, and so how did that extra level of caregiving affect your working life, or how did it affect your life?
I had plenty of PTO time, so I used almost all of it up, and it really didn't affect too much. They were happy to see me when I got back, so that made me feel good.
Great. So thinking about the places that you've worked, are there any accidents that stand out in your memory while you're on the job site?
Like injuries.
Injuries or accidents of any, like just that kind of, yeah.
I've seen a guy get his finger almost completely cut off at Universal. That's for injuries. That was pretty hard to see.
Sure, it was probably pretty gross.
He had gloves.
But how did that, how did that happen?
He was in maintenance and he was working on a saw, and the saw had a piece that would come down to stop the blade from driving itself into what they were cutting. And that piece came down on his finger, and it didn't cut it all the way through, but it got it. It definitely broke it, and you could see that it wasn't.
It was, yeah. Did you ever see any episodes of violence at any of your workplace?
Oh,
yeah?
yes.
Tell me about that.
So there was a couple guys that were always wanting to fight. They're always, let's take it outside. And there was one real good one during the night, because there was no supervision at night. So it was just us and our crew leader, whoever. And they got into it over one person not doing enough and the other person doing too much, and they didn't like that. And one kid took his shirt off and said, let's go outside, and they went outside and they smoked a cigarette, and I don't know what happened after that because I stayed away because I was always pretty scared to get involved in that. But
yeah.
There was, I wouldn't say that it was horribly violent, but definitely argumentative constantly.
Yeah. And was it mainly these two guys who just had some issues?
It was mainly the one guy. He had an issue with everybody.
Okay.
Everybody.
Okay. So right now you're in with the ironworkers and it seems like a good fit for you. Do you have a pension plan through there that you're contributing to for later?
Yes.
Have you ever worked anywhere where there was a buyout or anything like that, or they closed the shop while you were currently employed?
Yes.
What? Oh, yeah. Tell me a little more about that. You did mention that, but I want to kind of learn more.
So they shut down, they had shut down multiple times in the past, I guess. They were American Steel at one point, and they shut down, reopened as Alliance Castings. And when I came there, they were already going downhill, I guess. I didn't realize it because I really didn't know, but
sure.
I've been told that they were going downhill because the train parts, they're good for 10 years. So they make a bunch of them and then...
And then they take a break until they have to make a bunch of them again?
Yes. And they haven't reopened since, so I don't know if they're going to.
And they closed when you were there, right? So, when, 2014, 15, somewhere in there?
It was in between 14 and 15 somewhere.
Okay. And they're called Alliance Castings because they're in Alliance?
Yes.
Okay. So when they shut down, how long was it? You said you found the next job at a job fair. How long was it between when they shut down and when you were able to go to this job fair and find something else?
So I got the job fair was for Alliance Castings.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're okay. And then Universal, I actually went on Indeed on the website online.
Okay.
And it wasn't very long. I would say 4 months or so.
Okay.
It didn't seem like that long, at least, because I had my son and I was busy with that.
Mm-hmm. And since they shut down, you had unemployment during that time?
Yes.
And was it a financial hardship?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They gave us a mass unemployment or mass layoff number. I think that's what it was called, a mass layoff number.
Mm-hmm.
And they sent you all kind of information on your 401k that you had, and you had to either keep paying into it or lose it or move it.
Yeah.
So that was kind of hard because I really didn't know anything about that back then.
Yeah.
I ended up taking it out and then paying taxes on it later, which was a mistake.
Right. And so when they send you a letter, it says, here are your 3 choices.
Yes.
Do you recall if they gave you a name or phone number of, here, talk to this person if you have questions, or did they give you any resources to help you make a better decision out of curiosity?
I don't think so, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
I don't remember.
All right. Is there anything else that you would like to add about your whole work-life experience? Any one piece or anything at all?
I think that getting into all these jobs that I've been getting into since I was young, I think it's probably been the best choice for me. Because I don't really have a financial hardship like I know some women do that are waitresses because, they don't make enough money. They're living off their tips. And it's very sad. And I know that they're more than capable of doing exactly what I'm doing and other females are doing. And I know sometimes they just don't have that choice, but I think it's been great for me.
Was that a really big motivator for you when you were looking to get in there, because you had been in retail, which is notorious for not making very high wages, and then did you you found that at the job fair? Did you have any idea that it was going to be that much better money even then? No?
No idea.
But then you got in there and it felt pretty good to...
Yeah.
Okay.
It felt good to see, your 2-week check coming in at almost $2,000 rather.
Sure.
Growing up, like I said, my mom was single and she was working all them jobs and still didn't have any money for herself.
Right.
And that was sad.
Yeah.
And that kind of opened my eyes to what I wanted to have as an adult.
Yeah. And then it seems like you're pretty driven too. Once you got in there, you were looking for ways to better yourself in the job position, find yourself a better position while you were there. When you were bidding on new jobs, did each one also come with a little pay bump or anything? Yeah.
Yes, they all did. Yep.
Was it, from talking with you, it seems like the pay bump was a motivator, but it also seems like learning new things was...
Learning new things.
Is that
yeah.
seem... I don't want to put more words in your mouth, but it seems like they're equal, and you seem to enjoy your job a lot.
Yes, definitely. That's for sure. I hate monotonous work. I can't stand that typical over and over and over again. I couldn't do it. There's no way I could do it. That's why it's I want to learn this. If I can't do it, that's fine. But I don't think there's anything that you can't do.
That you can't learn. That's fantastic. Anything else that you can think of?
No, I'm pretty boring still.
No, not at all.
I would actually like to hear I'll definitely be back because I want to learn about the older women that have been through this.
Yeah, so many good things. This was really good. Thank you so much for talking with us. This has been delightful for me too. Thank you.